Arlington leaders hold a virtual town forum, doing what they can to ease the burden on small businesses and nonprofits in this pandemic. Will have reaction. Some people in town don't seem to be adhering to precautions to flatten that curve. This while we are also learning a new phrase, Corona racism. Governor Charlie Baker makes it official, school's out for summer. Massachusetts joins 34 states that have shut down schools for the remainder of the 2019-2020 school year. One area group has changed its game plan in getting nutritious food to those who need it. We'll hear from officials tonight at Foodlink and how they've been affected. One former ACMi news intern has a harrowing homeward journey to the other side of the earth. Beini Wang talks about her 5-day odyssey back to Shanghai, China. There are now 191 positive cases of COVID-19 in town and 19 deaths. This broadcast was edited on April the 24th.
From McLennan Park to Spy Pond, from Poets Corner to the Mystic River, we have Arlington covered. We're your neighbors, a friend you can turn to. This is ACMi News.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of ACMi News. I'm Jeff Barnes. The town of Arlington is making sure that small businesses and nonprofits will certainly not be forgotten in these uncertain times, which is why the town held its first Arlington Virtual Town Forum earlier this week. The intent of the meeting was to answer some poignant questions, showing local business owners and residents where business operators and nonprofits can turn to for help that is out there as we weather this pandemic. For instance, you'll find the COVID-19 link on the town website. Click on that link and go to the Business and Nonprofits resource page on the right. There you'll find things like town businesses that are taking online orders and selling gift cards, and a lot more. Town leaders, with the help of ACMi, held this first-of-a-kind forum. And here's just one question from business owners that town leaders addressed regarding the so-called Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program.
The next question is, do we know if there are additional funds coming for EIDL? It seems like the $10,000 grants have already been greatly reduced.
I can take that one, Adam.
Thanks, Ellen.
Sure. So I think there's been some issues with how the various aspects of the CARES Act have rolled out. And I think some of the messaging that came out initially was a little bit confusing to folks because I think many folks interpreted it, and I did myself, as that businesses could get a $10,000 grant for applying when they applied, and then, then there was the rest of it. It more specifically is a cap at $10,000, and it's $1,000 per employee, up to $10,000. I don't think that was a change. I think that was actually a change only in language, with the realization that people misunderstood. I've heard that there's already a sense that folks know that what's happening is probably not enough, and are planning for more. But right now there are no detailed proposals about any expansion of what is in the CARES Act as of right now.
Town leaders say they hope this will be the first of many virtual town forums to help us all get through this pandemic. If you want to learn more about this forum, all you have to do is go to the town website, go to arlingtonma.gov. There you'll receive all the updates you need if you're a small business owner, or if you work for a nonprofit, or if you're just interested. Now, in previous weeks, we've been telling you about what this pandemic has done to cause havoc when it comes to this year's town election, tentatively scheduled now for June the 6th. We certainly, definitely, without a doubt, have time to get to know the candidates, however, before that happens, whenever it happens. And ACMi has published links to interviews with most of those candidates running in this year's town election in races like the Select Board, the Board of Assessors, the Housing Authority, Town Clerk, and School Committee. All you have to do is go to our website, acmi.tv, to get to know the candidates and to learn more about the town election, again, whenever that occurs. Now, as we have been doing in previous weeks, we've been getting updates from our town manager, Adam Chapdelaine, as the town of Arlington weathers this pandemic. And even though it's still too early to tell if we've turned the corner or not, We are going to learn the very latest from him on what the town is doing as we weather this together. And unfortunately, there is a new word in our vocabulary, and that is called corona racism. We're hearing that there are 170 plus positive COVID-19 cases in Arlington, more than a dozen deaths so far in town. Are state health officials and town health officials positive that maybe we're turning the corner here, or do we have a few more days of this?
It's hard to say from our data. For so long, testing was very limited here. Then just last week, the National Guard came in to provide universal testing at Sunrise Assisted Living, and Park Ave Health Center had asked for testing kits of their own to do universal testing, and they did that. And as we announced yesterday on the 20th, there were 50 positive cases at Park Ave and 23 positive cases at Sunrise. So it's hard to know what's going to happen in the general public or the general population over the next 3 to 5 days. It does seem like all the data statewide is suggesting that we are in the peak and hopefully soon to be starting to come down and start to show a downward trend. But from just Arlington specifically, it's hard to know just where we are in terms of that peak.
A Conservation Commission session, I hear, was Zoom bombed, so-called Zoom bombed, not too long ago by people obviously who have nothing better to do. We are relying on this during this pandemic. What are you doing to buttress the security so that we can minimize this or not have it happen at all?
So this happened about 2 weeks ago, and in the immediate aftermath, we did two things. We purchased the webinar version of Zoom to be used for some meetings. That allows tighter control over the meeting for the moderator and the panelists, which would make Zoom bombing to some degree, I don't want to say impossible because I'd probably get proven wrong, but make it very hard to Zoom bomb it because the moderator can control who has the ability to speak or share the screen. We're not using the webinar for every meeting, the webinar version for every meeting, but for those meetings where we're not using the webinar version, we've tightened up the process you need to go through to access the meeting. So when you try to log on, you have to put in your email address and your name to log on. Whereas when these Zoom bombings were happening a couple weeks back, our understanding is the night it happened to our Conservation Commission, it happened to 10 other boards and commissions in various cities and towns in the region. And I think what these people were doing is they were just quickly grabbing meeting IDs, jumping into these meetings, causing havoc, and then jumping out. If you put up even the simple roadblock of needing to enter an email address and enter your name, even that, experts are saying even that's enough to dissuade these people so that they go find an easier target.
We're hearing a new word in our lexicon now, corona racism. Have you heard of any instances in town, and how do you battle that in the midst of everything else you're dealing with?
So nothing has been brought directly to my attention. I should talk to the police chief to see whether or not there's actual reports coming into the police department about it. But I have seen it on social media. I've seen talk about it on social media. I've seen talk about it on the Arlington list. And it is concerning. It seems to be focused on people of Asian backgrounds and concerned that it's somehow their fault that this virus made its way to America. And there's just no place for that behavior. It's absurd and ridiculous on so many levels to assert those types of accusations and to treat people differently based on these absurdities. So I will have to dig in more with the police department to see whether or not they're receiving calls or concerns, or even the Human Rights Commission, and seeing whether or not they're receiving calls or concerns. But I would say, without any hesitancy, if you're out there doing this, if you're harboring these feelings, let it go. It's not helpful. It certainly isn't going to help keep you safe. It's not going to help keep other people in the community safe. You need to let it go and start treating everybody the same.
All right, Adam, thanks again for your time. We know you're very busy, and we'll talk to you very soon. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Jeff.
With so many people out of work nowadays due to this pandemic, putting food on the table is getting increasingly difficult, and that's where Foodlink comes in. Foodlink in Arlington collects nutritious food that otherwise would be wasted and delivers it to several social service agencies throughout the area so that they can get that nutritious food to people who need it, those food insecure residents who need it, places like food pantries and homeless shelters. However, the COVID-19 crisis has drastically changed Foodlink's game plan. And in this interview, you're going to see some file video of what Foodlink volunteers and staff members do each and every day. But this video was taken prior to the COVID-19 crisis. In the meantime, staff members and volunteers at Foodlink are doing everything they can to adhere to the regulations of safety during the COVID-19 crisis. They are wearing masks. They are practicing social distancing. This is just to give you an idea of what they do. Here's the interview on how Foodlink has changed its game plan during this pandemic.
You know, I've been saying to a lot of folks, my life in so many ways is the same. I do the same work every day, which is getting food that would otherwise be wasted to people who need it. Yet it is entirely different. We have seen a decrease in some of our recipient agencies. So places like that we worked with, like senior centers and after school programs, are obviously no longer open. Well, we've seen an increase in need and influx of food. So in the first week of this, we had less food from the grocery stores we work with, but that hasn't stayed consistent. And in fact, we are seeing more food from places like distributors who have supply chain interruptions. The places that they would be selling their food to are no longer open. And like I said, there's increased need. So we are working more heavily with the food pantries because many of them are doing everything in their power to stay open right now, as well as a number of grassroots efforts and organizations that are thinking creatively about serving the folks that they've been serving anyways. So organizations that serve people transitioning out of homelessness who are just looking for bags of groceries to take folks or things like that. So we're getting creative about how we get the food out. I mean, the need is growing. As we're seeing higher unemployment numbers, we're going to see more food insecurity, especially given that so much of the folks who are really readily affected by this are in the service industry because they cannot continue working if their restaurant or retail store has closed. Mm-hmm. So those tend to be folks who don't have a large financial safety net anyways. So I think we're going to see an increase in need for food. And the folks on the front lines of dealing with that, like the food pantries and the other social service agencies, are really trying to respond, and we're working to get the food to them in any way we can.
And in addition to that is you have the older population and at-risk population who should not be going to a grocery store or are not allowed to. So several organizations are doing their part, as Elise said, doing home deliveries. So it's getting food to those who can't get out either, even though they might have the means. They need to stay home and be where they are.
When you go to these places to deliver your food, are you seeing people who, for the first time in their lives, are struggling to put food on the table? Or are you hearing these stories?
Frankly, that's one of my worries in the coming weeks and months, because if you've never had to access the emergency food system before, it's a daunting task.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Hard thing to walk through those doors, and right now people aren't even able to walk through those doors, but it's hard to ask for help. And making sure that the partners we work with on a regular basis work so hard to create a sense of dignity for folks who have to access their services. And they're trying their hardest to do it right now, but circumstances, there's a lot of fear involved. So I foresee not only that there's going to be so many more people who need these services, but it's going to be really daunting and hard to do.
It's good. This is a slight tangent, but one of the things that we are very conscious of is if people don't have nutritious food, in their home and somebody gets sick, it's going to be harder to fight this virus if you don't have proper nutrition. So it's a bit of a tangent, but it's one of the things in people who, whether they never needed these services before, they need them delivered in a different way by home deliveries or whatever, it's so important that they get this food because they need, as I said, the proper nutrients for their body to fight off an infection. One thing is for Arlington to know as well is that we're continuing to do what we do 7 days a week. We have not let up. That we're getting food out to organizations that serve people in need.
Foodlink has also partnered with Arlington Eats, an Arlington organization also dedicated to eliminating food insecurity. Now, Arlington Eats has changed its regular Wednesday food pantry into a twice-a-week food delivery service. If you want to know much more about these organizations, all you have to do is call Foodlink and see the dynamic work they've been doing of late at 781-819-4225. Now, when we all think back on the weeks that led up to where we are today, maybe 5, even 6 weeks ago, all of that seems like a blur. Brenda Mahoney caught up with someone who recorded those moments when pretty much all of us were still in a pre-COVID-19 state of mind.
I'm Brenda Mahoney with ACMi News, and today I am joined by Kristen Chalmers of Kristen Chalmers Photography. She's a photographer in Arlington and took it upon yourself, Kristen, to go around town during this pandemic and capture some images of the residents of town, frontline workers. I think I saw a pharmacist, some grocery store workers, a firefighter, and then also just folks going about their days. And I saw a lot of smiles there as well. Tell me about what you captured.
I think what I really captured was the essence of what living in a smaller town is like, even though we're in proximity to Boston. I always say that Arlington is more of a town of Boston, not a suburb. And just going about my daily life, because you still have to do certain things. I don't have a lot of work right now. So I was like, this will keep me creative. And I found that it also helped relieve anxiety as well as relieve some anxiety with the people in town. And I found a connection happening as I was photographing.
What was your approach first off? How did you get an image like this? Get someone to stop, take a look at you, take a look at the camera, and show themselves as they are in that moment?
Well, he was one of my favorites. And this was actually the second day I kind of decided to do this. And when I posted him on my page, a few people were like, I know that guy. And you can tell he's smiling even though his mask is on. And that was something.
Eyes.
Yes. And I never ask people to smile. But one of the things I noticed as you look at all of the portraits is people just kind of did it.
What inspired you to go out and then just capture folks in town?
Well, it started, I live in a really great small community in Turkey Hill, and it's kind of like definitely still kind of like the 70s. Everybody knows their neighbors, kids run out and play all the time. They don't come in till the street lights go on. And I wanted to do something nice for my neighbors. So it started with that, just taking my neighbors' portraits. Said, I think I'm onto something, because I posted them on my business page and I shared them to the Arlington Facebook list. I think I got 13,000 hits that day just from community members. So it made me realize how big our tiny town is.
And connected as well, because
Yes.
I'm seeing people I recognize.
Yes.
Neighborhood-wise, we're not too far apart. I love this one. It must be a pharmacist?
That is at Walgreens in Arlington Heights. One of the really great things I noticed, especially on the second day I worked, was there is diversity in Arlington. You just don't see it enough. And so that was my goal too when I started taking these pictures, was showing the diversity in our town, because you don't really know it's there until you see it, and I think that people getting to know their neighbors, which is everybody in the community, are realizing that too. I'm hoping there will be a huge shift from this experience for many people as far as how we live our lives, how we could be more connected now. When you take those things away from people, you realize how much you need it.
I love the smiles and the feeling of hope. It is dark times, but there's feeling of hope, and also feeling of that we just accept this. If you were to ask someone about, what it was like in, World War II and coming back and so forth, and we look at it as, wow, I can't believe you endured that. And I think that's how people are going to look at this. I can't believe you endured that. But when you're in it, you just accept it and you do the best you can.
Right. My family's taking it really easy and getting up when we want. And, for us, it's about keeping our home life stress-free, because it's such a stressful time. And a lot of people, what gave me the most hope was just seeing all these families together and nobody forcing anybody to do anything, and families wanting to be together. They're all just out and being. They're not they're not overachieving anymore. They can't. If we take anything away from this, besides maybe fixing the healthcare system and giving teachers and all the people on the front lines the money and credit they deserve, I feel like there is a really good lesson to be learned from all of this as far as what's important and what's not. Maybe learning how to work. We're going to work to live now instead of live to work.
Thank you for sharing this with us. And where can people go to see the entire, everything that you've taken?
They can go to my website, which is, I have two, but the one that the galleries live on is www.kristenchalmersphoto.com. It's not hard to find if you go into my website.
Thank you so much, Kristen, for sharing these excellent, just inspiring photos. On behalf of ACMi News, I'm Brenda Mahoney.
Earlier this month, I had a chance to talk to Beini Wang. She was an ACMi News intern with us, and she was set to graduate from Emerson College in the spring before the pandemic hit. Now, once things went out of whack, she had to leave ACMi because we're closed. She had to get off campus as well at Emerson College, which meant she had to pack up quickly. She had to meander through several canceled flights just to frantically get home to Shanghai, China. Here's her story now of a 5-day odyssey she will never forget.
My original flight was on March 29th. I had totally 2 weeks to pack everything to get back home because I just have a lot of stuff after living in Boston for so many years. Mm-hmm. But then just 1 week before I was going to fly, my flight was canceled because the policy of the flights are changing every day. So basically, I'm holding a Chinese passport, and my original flight was transiting from Hong Kong, and then the Hong Kong government are basically banning all the foreigners to transiting from their country. So my first flight was canceled, and we have to make a plan as soon as possible because if we flying out after 26, basically there's no way that I can go back home, and I don't want to be stuck in Boston where my whole family is on the other side of the planet.
Sure.
So I bought the tickets at midnight, and then I packed everything in 3 hours. I took an Uber to Newark Airport, and then I'm on the flight from Newark to Tokyo, and the whole plane was full. The whole plane was full. Everyone is trying to go home. There are Japanese because it's a flight to Tokyo, and there are also so many international students like me because
Mm-hmm.
everyone is trying to go home as soon as possible. And the flight ticket, it's super expensive. I spent around 3,000 for the flight tickets.
Just to get home. Now you're in Shanghai, correct?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's twice the size of New York population-wise at the very least. What are they doing in Shanghai right now? Are there any restrictions still? I'm sure they're still in place.
Right. So basically the mall and the supermarket, they're open, and there are people going out but still wear masks, and people are still working from home, and students still do remotely online classes, and we don't know when it's going to resume. But it's getting so much better. And right now there are no new cases from mainland China, but the cases that is coming from people passenger who carry from outside the country, and that's why they're really strict at the airport. So when I landed in Shanghai, I have to wait for 1 hour on the plane, and I'm the lucky one because I was the first few people to get out the plane. There are people waiting for 4 hours and 6 hours on the plane. And and then the immigration have to check our temperature one by one, and we have to go through at least 6 checkpoints. They have to ask where we come from, how long did you stay in Boston, who come you with the flight, do you are you feeling any sick, or have you been attached with a lot of people? It just I spent probably 2 hours on that, and then I got my luggage, and then there's a bus outside the airport waiting for us, and they took us to a hotel. So everyone is required to test for the COVID-19. I tested for the COVID-19. It was quick, and then I have to spend a night at the hotel because it takes 6 to 8 hours to wait for the result. So by that, it was already 4 days, 3 nights for me. Leaving since I left from Boston, it was already 3 nights. I have to spend another night at the hotel in Shanghai to wait for the result. And then next day morning, they call me, they say, your test is fine and you can go home now. And they arranged the bus to like drive me home, and there's people waiting just outside my building to pick me up. And then they just, got me home. I've seen news from, like Chinese media saying that a lot of people in the state are still like not taking this seriously. Like people like, I've seen news about like people gathering in Miami Beach, which is crazy because like, it's just crazy. Like the police are telling them to go home and they're like, oh, we don't want to go home. We just want to enjoy our time on the beach. Like, please take this seriously. It's not a joke. Like there's people dying. So I just want to add to that. Yeah.
That's good advice from Beini, and we're very happy she got home safely. Now it's time to turn things over to our Ponderscope, and let's go once again. Let's revisit, shall we, the living room of Nick Antonakis with the latest in our sports update. Take it away, fellas.
How's it going, everybody, and welcome to another living room update. With Governor Baker's decision to close all schools in Massachusetts for the remainder of the school year, we have still yet to hear any final decision regarding the spring season from the MIAA. Many of the players have advocated for finding a solution, if any. People have signed petitions to postpone the start of the spring season to the summer, or maybe playing games with empty arenas. A final decision should be announced by the MIAA hopefully sometime today or this weekend. Stay tuned to MIAA.net for further updates. In the meantime, be sure to take a step back in time to check out the action-packed tournament matchup between the Arlington boys hockey squad and Pope Francis. Definitely one for the books.
Nate's going to turn those away from the outside all day, and we got a race, Kenny.
And here comes Missouri. Missouri's had a fantastic season. Couple game-winning goals. Terrific player. He does find it. Shot goal! Oh my goodness! As Anthony Missouri found John Horrican.
I think that was Brendan Jones.
Was
Kenny.
it Jones? 16, you're right. Brendan Jones.
So Brendan Jones scored first up here in Framingham when they played Framingham in the first game. It looks like he's going to get the first one here tonight.
That's all we got this week. From my living room to yours, I'm Nick Antonakis.
Thanks, guys. It's always good to see you each and every week. That'll do it for this edition of ACMi News. If you want to learn more about what we're doing as far as reporting on this pandemic, all you have to do is go to our website, acmi.tv, and click on ACMi News, and there you'll see all the stories we've done in the past, as well as past newscasts, if you want to take a look at them as well. Also, if you want to learn more about what the town is doing to flatten the curve, just go to their website. They're updating it daily. Go to arlingtonma.gov for the very latest on what the town is doing as we all try to weather this crisis. Thank you so much for joining us for this week's edition of ACMi News. I'm Jeff Barn. Please stay safe, and if you can, try to help out others. Good night.
You can always check out our latest segments and newscasts on the web at acmi.tv/news. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at ACMi News. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You'll find us at youtube.com/ACMi News. If you have any news tips for us or wish to become a citizen journalist, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at news@acmi.tv or stop by ACMI Studio A at 85 Park Avenue.